Making everyone happy on vacation isn't easy, but you know what is? Going to Aruba. All you have to do is walk out your door to find pristine pools, relaxing white sand beaches, and an island teeming with outdoor activities that'll put a smile on any face. You won't just feel great, you'll all feel great, filled with a calmer, more peaceful vibe that radiates Aruba's warmth. And the best part is, it never fades. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your family trip at aruba.com.
Nobody understands everything I do around here. The invisible work often going on inside our heads is unrelenting and never-ending. Today, we get honest about the mental load and explore where it came from and how in the heck we got here.
You're listening to Honest Women, the podcast for every woman who's trying to juggle the relationships, roles, and responsibilities that come with modern womanhood and finding it all just a little harder than she thought it would be. We're your hosts, Andrea Berkeley
And Jessica Hutchison, your new besties who just happen to be therapists. And while we believe that life is hard and there's no tip or trick that will solve that, it does get just a little bit easier when we can be real with each other and talk about it honestly.
You're listening to Honest Women.
Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Jessica.
Almost afternoon, I guess.
Feels like it. As a woman and a mom, sometimes I feel like I've lived about 18 lifetimes, and then I'll look at the clock and I'll be like, oh, it's like 10. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's like 8 or 6:30.
Or how many more hours till I go to bed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I tell you really quick one of my pet peeves?
Yeah.
Because this just happened. I went down, I'm in my office, right? And I went downstairs to use the restroom. And okay, here's my pet peeve, ladies. Wipe your pee off the toilet seat. I know this is totally irrelevant to a mental load episode, but I just have to say it. I get it. You don't have to sit on the toilet seat. I don't recommend it, but just wipe off your stuff for those of us. Do it for us, women.
Those of us who have boys at home, when you're out in a ladies' room, you're like, finally, a clean bathroom. And, it's a real letdown. We had women supporting women.
That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Today, we're talking about a topic that I have seen a lot lately. How about you?
Okay, I see this topic all the time, but it does make me wonder. And a lot of times I have this question. Is this something I know about because of being a therapist? Is it something I know about because of the algorithm and the things that pop up on my social media? Or is this something that everybody knows about? I know it's something that everybody feels.
That is a great question. So today we are talking about mental load, and I'm glad you said that because I always make an assumption everybody knows what the heck we're talking about, and that's just not accurate.
I mean, most of the time people probably have no idea what we're talking about.
I mean, I just went on a tangent about something totally random. So yeah, I'm sure they're like, what are you talking about today? Let's start off, and I feel like we're switching roles a little bit where I'm like the definition person.
Yeah, you are.
Right? And that's
See how it feels. Uh-huh.
I know.
You might like it.
Okay, we're going to define, or I'm going to give you a definition of mental load. Let me note that this comes from Eve Rodsky, author of Fair Play. Mental load is defined as the never-ending mental to-do list you keep for all of your family tasks. Though not as heavy as a bag of rocks, the constant details banging around in your mind nonetheless weigh you down. Mental overload creates stress, fatigue, and often forgetfulness.
Ugh. I'd say it's as heavy as a bag of rocks.
I'd say it's a hell of a lot heavier.
I know.
It's like the weight of the world.
Absolutely. It's also called invisible labor. And the reason is because even though someone else from the outside can't see it, it is real and it exists. And I carry this stuff around with me every minute of every day. It takes a toll.
It's exhausting. And that's why a lot of times we hear women say, I'm exhausted and I don't even feel like I did anything. Well, your brain did.
Totally. Can we touch on some of the things that fall into the mental load category?
Give me one.
Okay, I've got one right now. You've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Camp sign up.
Oh, good Lord.
Jess, can I tell you something? I have this idea. I want to send my daughter to camp because all of the time I'm thinking about each of my children and about the things that they're interested in and what they might like to do and where their talents are and where their time goes. And I decide she needs to go to camp. She doesn't have a thing. And I don't know. The friendship stuff, it's always just kind of tricky. Anyway, camp. She's going to do it. Okay. So then I have to research the camps. I
Mm-hmm.
had to crowdsource a little bit too. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had to reach out to other people to see if their daughters wanted to go to camp with my daughter. All of this social engineering. And then I had to talk to my daughter and see what she thought and what she felt about it and would she want to go if she was by herself. And she says, yes, 1,000 times yes. I want to go to camp, even if it's by myself. Okay. So I show her the 2 websites because I'm just passing the mental load on to another generation. She reviews them. She makes a choice. We look at the dates. We had to compare that to everything else that we're doing and everything else that everyone else is doing. We settle on the dates. No one's going to go with her. It's time to sign her up, but I got to check one more time with my husband because finances, just want to make sure like we're on the same page. I'm about to sign her up. Okay. I mean, I think you can hear some of the tasks along the way. So I'm like, I got to do this. It's probably going to fill up at some point, but I've been checking that website every single day, probably from my computer and my phone. And it says this week of camp is open. Okay, great. Go into the website, click the button, start to fill out the forms. This week now has a wait list.
Oh, no.
Motherfucker.
Like, I actually feel like I'm having a post-traumatic response because
I
of my
know you
last
are.
year.
Right. That's why I'm bringing this up with you because you know the pain
Yes, I
of
do.
being the person who has, again, I have worked 1,000 hours on this in my mind in so many different directions. And then there I go to sign her up to like finish the task. And now she's on the wait list. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Then I have to go back to crowdsourcing. How about this camp versus this camp? What do people think? And then I have to think about, do I sign her up for the other camp? Do we pay deposits in both places? I don't know what to do. So I feel terrible.
Oh, man.
I was so sad. I sent a very pathetic email to the camp directors, and they said to me, yes, that session had openings until last night, and your daughter is the first one on the wait list.
Oh, no. Well, yay if the wait list moves, but oh, no.
This is just one thing. Camp sign up.
One.
I know. And that's not even the big catalog. Our park district opens their shit up next week. And I'm like, oh boy, if you don't want to be a big fail next week too, then you better figure out the schedule for everyone for the whole summer.
My head hurts.
I know. That's one
One.
area of mental load.
Do you know I failed like 2 weeks ago?
What? Really?
Yeah, I did because our school does these little mini courses in February, and they're fun little mini courses. My daughter's doing like a slime making one. There's a Lego building architecture one. You know what's funny? They have a podcasting one,
What?
which I am not leading.
Okay, I'm also shocked you're not leading that because that just sounds like you're like, I'm teaching a workshop to hundreds of children about podcasts.
You want to know what I actually thought? I read podcasting and I was like, I'd probably do it better. I'm not even kidding. And then I was like,
you probably would.
boundaries, I am setting them.
We are growing and changing.
We are growing.
We got to bring it back to our, just say no. We can link that in the show notes.
I'm doing it. Just say no. Like camp, you have to sign on at a certain time because the really popular ones go right away.
Right.
I'm ready. Then my son gets the stomach bug in the middle of the night.
No.
My husband was traveling for work. It was just me. I was up all night. So when my alarm went off, what did I do? Off.
Oh, shit.
So again, I was 10 minutes late. But I did not get my son into the class that he wanted.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
And you probably were thinking about that. You were noting the date of the sign up. You were reading the stuff about the classes, talking to your kids about it, setting the alarm. And now you have to do all of this juggling on the back end. That is mental load. And this is just one topic. Yeah, let's name a couple more. Running the shopping list. That's the mental load. What are we going to eat today?
Meal planning.
What are we out of?
School schedules.
Obviously, I'm not doing a good job with that one because I never know when my kids are going to school. And then they keep having days off. And I'm like, oh.
Do kids go to school anymore? My
no.
God, they've got a lot of days off.
Go to school. All the
Good,
days.
get out of the house. Go away.
Right.
I love you. I'll see you at the end of the day. We'll reconvene.
And emails from the school.
Signing up for sports.
Oh, sports.
Okay, another thing that Eve talks about is emotional labor, defined by the maintaining relationship, managing emotions, work, like calling your in-laws, sending all the thank you notes, buying the teacher gifts, soothing meltdowns in Target. The work of caring can be some of the most exhausting labor.
Okay, I have a thing that I literally just remembered that's so embarrassing here. So we have Teacher Appreciation Week, and I signed up. Listen, that was my first issue. I should have known better. You are not reliable, Andrea. You cannot remember this, but I did remember. I remembered, and I carried that in my little brain for weeks that I needed to go the week of our school's like teacher week and buy a gift card. I thought of what the gift card should be. The teacher said she likes salads. I thought about the restaurant that I like that has a great salad, and I went and bought gift cards. Do you know where those gift cards are right now?
In your pocket, hopefully?
They are in my fucking purse right now.
Oh,
And do you know when
no.
Teacher's Week was? 2 weeks ago.
Oh, shit.
2 weeks ago. I remembered that I forgot. Actually, my daughter reminded me. So,
Hopefully in a nicer way than mine would.
nope, not really.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Reminded me of my failure last week, and then I re-forgot. Speak of forgetfulness. And now I feel like I've failed on the emotional labor side of being a person who creates good relationships with important people like teachers and also doesn't disappoint their daughter all the time.
Oh, no.
Fail.
Wah, wah, wah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the invisible labor.
Yeah, it's invisible labor. And
wait, can I ask you a quick question?
mm-hmm.
Does your husband know when Teacher Appreciation Week is?
Fuck no. That's what I was going to say.
Thank you. I was really hoping you would say no.
Yeah, the emotional labor. I mean, there's the invisible work. Some of it, the mental load, the invisible work, but also the emotional labor. I feel like that the whole zone of maintaining relationships falls absolutely on me.
100%. Me too.
Ugh! And it makes me so frustrated because not only does keeping track of all the things take a lot from you, but being a regulated parent, putting relationship first, having to go and see how everyone's feeling and making repair when you need to. Actually, I have a repair story for you. So yesterday, I was not my best self at piano lessons. To be fair, not my fault. My kids were being assholes. I had the little one on my computer. The biggest one said, I want to be on the computer right now. I was literally trying to finish something for work. I've got my headphones in and I'm going, I don't care. Stop talking to me. Do not talk to me. Do not talk to him. Nobody cares. Stop. Okay, so this is going on in the waiting room of the music lessons. There are other people there. I'm just done. Done. So we leave. I am not cool with everybody. We get home. And my daughter and my youngest are she said, I'll help with him. They immediately start fighting. And I said, everyone get to your room. Just go to your rooms, separate. I'm done. Right. So now I've got this huge emotional labor weight on me. I know I need to go and I need to repair, even though I don't want to. And it's not my fault. And they should all come to me and be like, I'm sorry, I'm such an asshole. But so I'm sitting there thinking about it, slightly avoiding. And the little one comes downstairs. He says, daughter is upstairs in her room crying because you told her to go to her room. I was like, not fair, overreaction.
Agreed.
But then he says, I want to make her feel better. Meanwhile, he's supposed to be in his room. I want to make her feel better. So I'm making her a card and I'm using glitter. Oh, it had already been done, Jess. It had already been done. Do you know where there's glitter in my house?
Everywhere.
Literally, I looked over at him and he said glitter and I started to have an out of body experience. It was like, wow. I was like, no
glitter.
You said glitter. And I looked at him and I was like, has this already happened? Or is he saying he's going to use glitter? I look at him, he's got glitter on him.
You're going to have glitter in your house till he graduates?
Yeah. That. So anyway, emotional labor and physical labor where now somebody has to clean up the glitter.
Oh no.
And then on top of glitter, I had to go and repair with all these monkeys who really made my life difficult yesterday.
It is really hard.
I had to be the grown up and I hated it. Hated every minute.
You know what? Maybe we were channeling each other yesterday because I had to do a repair with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was upset at gymnastics because I don't know. God, no, I don't even know. It was not a big deal.
Right.
It really wasn't. And I think my response was, honey, just go do gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
And her response to me was, what kind of mother are you?
Oh!
Uh-huh. And it was not quiet. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. What am I going to do?
You're like the kind of mother who just got publicly shamed by my daughter. Rude.
And then that's what she says back to me. I just look at her. She goes, "Stop shaming me," and walks away. And I was like, she got the last word.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to mention that we've just done an episode on the complicated relationship between mothers and daughters, and you should probably listen to that. I might go back and listen to it, give myself a little grace. So I think we've done a good job of describing what mental load is and a little bit about emotional labor, but I just don't think we have fully claimed the fact that all of this seems to fall unequally on women.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about where this pattern started.
Girl, I think it starts in pregnancy. I think it starts in pregnancy because if I look back over the scope of our relationship, I would be like, we were pretty balanced up until we had kids. And the pregnancy thing is like a physical embodiment of I'm holding life in a way that you're not. But then I think, like, just from a very practical standpoint, especially if you are a breastfeeding mom, you start doing more of the day-to-day work in your home at the very first minute that you have kids. And I think that's when it becomes default. Oh, well, you know how to, really soothe this baby, or, I would feed him, but I can't. Oh, and then that turns really quickly into, well, how much does he eat? When does he eat? Right?
Yes.
It rolls forward from that minute, I think.
I think you're spot on here. And a lot of it is invisible and goes on inside our heads, which means a lot of it we're not really talking about. And it creates this imbalance very early on.
Yeah, I think that it goes beyond just feeding into, especially if you have a long maternity leave or you do a stint as a stay-at-home mom. That's really where, just put the nail into that coffin. That is almost like an agreement that a lot of couples make unknowingly that, hey, you're going to handle everything pertaining to our life while I go to work. For women who are on the receiving end of this, or maybe even finding some identity in owning the home, this really ends up being a really bad deal. And it can lead to us going like, why the fuck am I the only one who knows what size clothes our kids wear?
Yes.
How is it possible that every email to the school comes to me, right? It rolls forward and it becomes so expansive. It's fair when you have an infant, especially if you're at home with that infant and you're the only one that feeds that infant, that you would know when to feed that infant. It's not fair when you have a 5-year-old that your partner doesn't know what the kid likes to eat and when lunch is, right? That's just like, that's not cool anymore. And I think we move from this is kind of the way things have been to like, this is fucking unmanageable and it makes me angry.
Yeah, it almost gets out of control.
Totally.
And that's when we realize there is a problem, not early on when we're starting to notice maybe this is imbalance. I think you're also speaking to the whole concept of over and or under functioning. Now, I naturally am an over functioner, and my husband will say, just sit down. And I'm looking at him like he is batshit crazy. What do you mean sit down? There's so much that needs to get done. And he's like, okay, sorry. Like I was just saying, take a seat. And I am like, how dare you?
Do you think that women tend to be like in an over and under functioner dynamic? Do you think that women tend to be the over functioners? Or do you think that's just the women that we know? Or do you think that develops over time?
I think it develops over time. I think naturally I was an under functioner before, like growing up as the baby in the family. I think I allowed pretty much everybody to do everything for me. And then I became an over functioner.
Yes. I bet it started when you started having kids.
100%. That was a hell of a lot easier going before I had kids.
It's so true. Part of what you're touching on here, though, is that there can be a dynamic that starts any place in a relationship where one person tends to just do more, maybe more than they ought to, and another person does less than they ought to. And I know as a person who sees myself as an over functioner, especially where our home is concerned, that can make me very mad. And when I see that in couples that I'm working with or with women, I'm seeing them one-on-one and they describe the disparity between what they do and what their partner does, I'm ready to go like burn our bras. I'm like, yeah, burn our bras, just like freedom for women, like whatever. It makes me so mad, but I don't think it started there. Like, I don't think that we started over functioning, and I don't think that our husbands started under functioning. I think that that's something that takes off over time. Otherwise, like, why would we ever have chosen each other?
Well, right. And honest question, do you think you had an easier time asking your husband for help in your early stages of marriage? Or do you think you just kind of did things naturally, independently, and it just didn't matter?
Oh, I think it was just like the burden was so much lighter. In this fair play concept, so Eve Rodsky has a book and then a deck of cards where it describes basically 100 tasks that are done that involve some amount of invisible labor, and then you can divide them between the spouses. I don't remember the number that get added to the deck when there's children involved, but it's something like 30-ish. So before you have children, it might be 70 tasks. And after you have children, it's another 30. And then what happens is that women tend to pick up those 30.
Yes, they do.
Whether they stay home with their kids or have a job that they maintain out of their home.
It's one thing that I feel like keeps people stuck. We assign tasks versus responsibility. And I was reading this grocery store example where the husband goes to the grocery store to get red peppers and they're out of red peppers. The husband calls the wife and said, they're out of red peppers. Can I get orange peppers? And she's aggravated. Why in the hell is he calling me? Yes, get the damn orange peppers and come home. Here's the problem with it. The only reason the husband was calling is because he was afraid he was going to make the wrong choice. He was given a task, not a responsibility. Go get the red peppers.
Right.
And if he doesn't feel, and again, I'm not saying this falls on women by any means. I'm just helping explain the dynamic. If he feels like he is not able to make the decision independently out of fear of getting ridiculed or criticized for making the wrong one, guess what, ladies? He's going to call you from the damn grocery store.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you the number of pictures that I get, text pictures, if my husband goes to the grocery store. And to be fair, what I want him to do is feel empowered. But what actually happens is if he comes back with like a dumb choice for cheese, I'm like, what the hell cheese is this? Right. And that adds to the dynamic.
We have to own our own shit here.
And that starts really early too. And I think that starts in infancy. If this is so important for the ladies who are headed into the children's stages, and even for those of us who have had children for a long time, you have to empower your spouse to make some decisions. We have to allow them to do things the way that we wouldn't exactly do. This gets complicated when we acknowledge that a lot of times the invisible labor of figuring out how to parent falls on women. Like who is reading the parenting books? Who's listening to the podcast? Who is, on all the parenting Instagram accounts and is, really being conscientious about these things? It's women. And to be fair, I don't actually want to be the holder of the whole trajectory of our parenting, but I can see why in a lot of families, mom has all of the research, done about how to raise a child through this stage. And dad comes in and is like, oh, I'll do it totally different. And then mom's like, nope, that's not how we do things. Right. And I totally understand why this happens. And it adds to the dynamic because there's the temptation to say, you're doing it wrong. I will just do it.
And you don't get buy-in. There's no agreement. So yes, reading the parenting book, watching all the videos, listening to the podcast, but you're doing that independently. Again, if you're going to do that, great. But then going to your partner and saying, hey, I listened to this great podcast and I want to apply these concepts. He's kind of backed into a corner here, ladies. Like he then has to say either cool, like teach me what I'm supposed to do, which puts more work on you, or he's going to say, no, I don't know that I buy into that. And I don't know that either one of those is a good response.
Neither one of those is a perfect response. I will say though, I think if we look at the concept of assigning tasks or delegating, that once someone has picked up a task, I actually do think it's the other person's job to defer. So if we're operating in a way that I am doing all of the mental labor, the invisible labor of researching about parenting, your ass better agree with what I say. Or if I'm doing all the physical labor of parenting our kids 85% of the time during the day while you're at work, then maybe you need to come and get with the program. And I'm willing to teach. This is actually how we're handling it this week. This is what's working. Teach once, and then we move forward. I actually don't want two cooks in the kitchen. This is part of the issue with invisible labor is we never give something away.
Yes.
And also, if we have a partner who doesn't allow us to claim something fully, right? This goes both ways.
Yes, it does.
So if a partner takes over the task of taking out the garbage, only one of us needs to think about taking out the garbage, actually take out the garbage, buy the garbage bags. That's giving away a task.
And if you're giving away the task, well, then guess what? Then don't prompt either.
Right.
Because that then is, well, I have to remind you, okay, well, what happens if he forgets it? Then he forgets it.
Right.
I see women almost afraid to let failure happen, or it just doesn't get done when they want. I will also say, when you talked about the teach, right? If I'm doing all the research, one, that has to be agreed upon, not told, agreed upon. And then two, you have to be willing to teach it. And I see women, or I hear women in my office all the time saying, well, why is it my responsibility to teach? Well, I'm not saying it's your responsibility. However, if you have taken the role of being the primary caregiver and doing all the research without having a conversation about it, well, then guess what? You're going to have to teach him. You can't just expect him to go do what you want him to do. It's unfair, just as unfair as carrying all the mental load for the family.
One really brief thing that I think we could touch on here. One of the things I've heard about mental load 1,000 billion times, but one of the things that really stuck out to me this last time I heard Eve interviewed was that some of the work of figuring this stuff out involves a literal sit down and combing through these tasks, finding out which ones you naturally agree on. Those can go to the side, they just get assigned. And then finding the ones where you just don't agree on how it's supposed to be done and determining in a very practical way what she calls a minimum standard of care. It's essentially saying, this is how we're going to do things around here. And I think that actually working through that process can help cut the resentment.
It's not an easy conversation, and you have to take personal responsibility. Can I give them the story? Oh, that came up when you and I were kind of talking through.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
This was the best. We were kind of brainstorming what we wanted to talk about with mental load because it's a big topic. During that, Andrea says, she said, you know what? I'll just take the notes in a document. And I said, okay, cool. And then later I'm like, oh, write that down. And she says to me, I'm not your secretary. While she's typing all the notes. And I looked at her and I go, no, but you chose to do this task. I
Right.
did not ask you to.
That was the thing that we were writing down was, I'm not your secretary. And you're like, this is kind of funny because you're like literally my secretary right now.
And you chose to be.
The response that partners give is, you chose to be.
Yes.
You chose to be. And then I was like, we are enacting something, except that we weren't actually feeling those feelings. We were just having a good laugh.
There's a whole part of taking personal responsibility. Am I harboring resentment for my partner for not assisting me with a task or responsibility without acknowledging that I am choosing to own it?
And this one always gets under my skin because I, like many women, will say, but if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. That might actually be true. And all I'm saying here is that making a change here is going to involve some growing pains.
Oh, big time. This is not an easy conversation to have because people naturally are going to want to defend themselves if they feel like they're being criticized, right? You're telling me I'm not doing enough around here, and I'm going to defend it by telling you all the things I do around here.
And then the partner who has to bring up the fact that it's not working then feels unseen and unheard. And this is the basis for every fight that happens between a couple.
Oh, yeah. I watch it on my couch all the time.
Yeah, I'm distressed about something. I bring it up to you. You get defensive. I feel unheard. Around and around we go. I think that's where approaching this topic outside of the moment, like it's critical to approach this topic outside of the moment. To say something like, and this is how we've done it recently, I just feel like the way that we're managing these tasks, like it's not working really well. I'd like to change it. I'm not sure exactly how. So I'd like to collaborate with you on it, as opposed to, I'm doing everything around here and you never blah, 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 right? So the way we approach, and even if we say like, I know that this, could get into a defensive territory, right? So you preempt it a little bit. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I want you to hear me. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. You do a lot. I do a lot, but we're running into the same trip ups all the time. And I just like want better for us than that.
For the first 10 years of my marriage, I never asked for help and made this assumption that he would just know while I'm over functioning and taking it all over. Hold on. Maybe part of the problem is that I thought I could do more than I could actually do. And instead of collaborating or saying, hey, let's look at this from a problem solving approach, I leveled up and I overachieved like I usually do. And he kind of took a back seat because he had to.
We can approach this conversation with ownership.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten to where we are over a long period of time. That's as much because of how I've approached this as how you've approached this. But right now in this season, it's not working for us anymore. And I want to build something new because I just think we deserve better than this. That's how I basically approach it. I think we deserve better than this.
Yeah. And I think the approach matters. Clearly, there are multiple ways to approach this really difficult and uncomfortable conversation, whether it's asking for help or assistance or saying, hey, what we're doing isn't working. Let's start collaborating. The point here is there can be conversation that can lead to change. Thanks for joining us today on the Honest Women Podcast. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast app. That way, you'll never miss out on our honest conversation. We're all about spreading the love, so why not share the podcast with the amazing women in your life? You know, the ones who would appreciate knowing they are not alone. For more behind-the-scenes fun and updates, follow us on Instagram at Honest Women Podcast. We'd love to connect with you there. Got something to say? We are all ears. Drop us a line at hello@honestwomenpodcast.com or visit our website at www.honestwomenpodcast.com. Your feedback means the world to us.